Good morning. We're going to go ahead and get started. That says 8:58, but I say 9. So either way, we're going to go ahead and get going. If you didn't know already, we do have our guest speaker here with us this morning. He's going to do a presentation during Bible class, and we have several new members this year, so we're just going to give a brief introduction. Testing. Maybe I need to just move it. So we're going to give a brief introduction. Is that better? Thank you. Thanks for letting me know. So we have Christopher Carter here with us from the Florida Prison Ministry, which we've been supporting for a while. We're going to continue to support that. That's overseen by the Lake Butler Church of Christ. Okay, good. Got it right. And what he does is travel around the state, really, he and his crew, to work in the prison system, to spread the gospel, to minister in lots of different ways. It's been a great success, and we're looking we're going to increase our support next year for that work because of such a great work, and we appreciate what they're doing. Also, we sent out a video this week through the Realm app and through email. That was an update that they put together. It was very well done, and the elders would encourage you to watch that video, give some good information, some testimonials on the work that Christopher and that team is doing. So please take a look at that, and if you didn't get that, let us know, and we'll make sure that you do get it. All right, I'll turn it over to Christopher.
Well, good morning. It's wonderful to be here with you today. My family and I are here. My wife Sandra, daughter Alejandra, and son Maximo. And what we're going to do is give you an update on the work that's happening across the state here in Florida. So, Florida is our mission field, and we have the potential to reach thousands in Florida. As a matter of fact, according to statistics, these are last year's statistics, but according to that, there's roughly 82,000 individuals incarcerated in Florida. And what that simply means is, for the church, we have work to do. Now, because of this, we minister across the state. And we do this in a variety of different ways, both physical and through electronic means. But what I want to talk about first is some of the people who we minister to, because that's what this is all about, is the people. So first we have AJ. AJ was a bank robber, and AJ is now in prison. He has a few more years, maybe about 4 more years. AJ is someone who I've been ministering to on a regular basis. AJ is a Calvinist. Now, for anybody who's not familiar with what a Calvinist is, essentially, this side is the goats and this side is the sheep. And God chooses that, and there's nothing you can do about it. Or in other words, He chooses some for heaven and some for hell from the very beginning, and that's pretty much that. When He puts His Spirit upon you, you have no choice but to obey if you're one of those who He called. Now, we understand that's not simply the case. However, in the church, we can have all of the Bible doctrine down to a T, but yet if we fail to show the love of Christ, then sadly we may miss an opportunity. So even though this man and I do not agree on Bible doctrine, I continue to minister to him one-on-one and show him the love of Christ. And slowly but surely, I'm making a little bit of progress. So he now believes in choice to some extent, but we're working on that. This is Bruce, and he looks great, doesn't he? Bruce and I have one thing in common. We have a lot of things in common, but one thing that we have in common is at one point in time we were both addicted to methamphetamine. So this is what that looks like. Now, Bruce is a unique situation because I've never had to read somebody the gospel. I always open the Bible up and let them read it to me. However, Bruce has a very challenging time reading. So I read it to him. And of course, we've been working on his reading, but he is someone who is a real positive person, and he has obeyed the gospel. Now here's Tyrone Taylor, and you may remember I probably talked about Tyrone Taylor before, and I'm probably always going to talk about Tyrone Taylor because his situation is really sad. He's from the Jacksonville area, and he was playing craps, a dice game, with some people, and he lost his money, a couple $1,000s, and he asked his homeboy to go rob the person and get his money back. Well, his homeboy ended up killing the other person. And the police came to Tyrone and wanted him to just tell the truth. Just tell us, this person, you lost your money to him and you asked someone else to go rob him. But Tyrone is from the hood, and there's a code. You don't talk to the police. So they charged him with the same thing, and he's sitting in prison now with a life sentence, a natural life sentence. And if something doesn't change for him, then he'll die in prison. He's been in there 10 years, roughly, and he's 30 years old. But Tyrone is a very positive person, and he's also a disciple maker. So he brings men to us, and we're real thankful for Tyrone, and I don't believe that his story will end in prison. Now, here is another man, Joshua Bauer, and I may or may not have talked about him last time too, but I'm just going to tell you in brief, Joshua is also a Calvinist, and Joshua is a smart, intellectual man, but he makes a lot of bad decisions, and especially in prison. He started off with a 10-year prison sentence, and some other people were trying to take advantage of him, and he ended up stabbing them, got tacked on another 30 years, and anyway, I met him when I first took over for Gary, which was, strangely enough, 3 years ago. Time flies. But I met Joshua, and like I said, he too was Calvinist, and we went back and forth, back and forth. He's now in closed management at the Florida State Prison, where they have said that he was trying to incite a riot and escape. So he's under lock and key pretty heavily. But they called me to see if I'd come minister to him, and I said absolutely. So I did that, and one of the things that Joshua has told me, there's a particular Bible that I have given to him when he was down in Avon Park, which is around the Sebring area. It's called a Apologetics Press Defending the Faith Study Bible. And it is a good study Bible for anyone who wants to know more about what the Bible has in terms of doctrine and things of that nature. And Joshua told me, he said, I now know that I need to be baptized for the remission of my sins. I now know that I have a choice. And that's amazing to me, because it is extremely difficult to break through this Calvinist teaching. So I asked him, would you please just write me a letter and let me know exactly what it is in this Bible that you read that has changed your mind. So he's going to do that. So I'm real thankful for that. It's just amazing. But he's another situation where, we did not agree at all. But I kept showing him the love of Christ. And I'd go down to Avon Park to minister to him, and now he's closer in my region. But through that continual effort, he's now exactly where he needs to be. So I went and saw him not too long ago, and he had a great, even though his situation is terrible, he had a look of happiness on his face. So it was truly amazing. But we deal with all kinds of men who have all kinds of issues, all kinds of problems, all kinds of experiences in life. And here I've listed about 50 of those men, and these are 50 men who we've taken care of. And they got dates by their names. Now, when I say taken care of, I don't mean taken care of. But I mean, these are men who have now been baptized, and they're in Christ. And we have about 55, but when I created this slide, we were at 50. Now, number 30 up there, Glenn Alston, he says, "Hey, Chris, I just wanted to thank you again for coming to my baptism and also for the Bible," which was, he's holding it right there. It's one of the Defending the Faith study Bibles. And as a matter of fact, where's Pawn at? Is Pawn in here? Pawn, raise your Bible up for me. So this is the actual Bible right here that we help men receive. Thank you, Pawn. And anyways, Glenn's, he's appreciative of that. He thanks us for that. And he says, "Thank you for coming to my baptism," because this was at a facility where the actual chaplain was having another inmate do the immersion. So I was kind of around the edges of it. But I noticed that the inmate was not completely submerging people. So when he was up there, I was like, well, let's get him down, trying to push him down. But he still did not get completely submerged. I wasn't confident about it. Oddly enough, a couple weeks later, he's transferred to another facility, and he's there only, it was like a glitch or something in the system, and he was only there for a week. But guess what? While he was there, we went in and we made sure that he was baptized correctly, and then he went right back to Putnam. So talk about God's providence. So those are some of the people who we minister to. Now let's talk about some of the places where we minister. Well, as I mentioned before, we minister across the state, and we do this with both a physical presence and through electronic means. Now, the state is divided into 4 different regions. You have Region 1, which is in the Panhandle, looks kind of purple. Region 2 there, Region 2 is kind of the teal color. Region 3 is yellow, and then Region 4 is green. Now, these circles on here represent circles where we have a heavy presence in the prison system. So the big blue circle is Region 2, and that's where we are located and where we have a huge physical presence. But we also have volunteers who help us across the state. And we may have more than what I have shown up there, but the ones that I show up there are the ones that I have personally worked with and regularly work with. So over there in the far corner of the Panhandle, in Region 1, we have a good presence, as well as in the middle of Region 3 and down at the very bottom of Region 4. However, in between the Region 1 orange circle and Region 2, the blue circle, in the Panhandle, there is a concentration of prisons right there, and lots of men who need ministering to. So we're actively trying to find volunteers in that area. But here in that blue circle is Regions 1, 2, and 3. And these are some of the prisons that we are located, or we minister in those areas. There's 18 prisons listed up there, and I am personally in 17 of those. Now, some of the services that we offer, Christian counsel and mentoring, that's a big one, if not one of the most important ones. We can have classes and do different things for individuals or groups, but as an individual, that's where you really get to the nuts and bolts of things, where you really get to know a man, and a man will open up to you. And we don't go in saying, hey, who can we counsel to, or pick people to counsel to, but they come to us. They come to us either by a friend or a family member who says, hey, I know somebody in prison, can you minister to them? Or another inmate, perhaps, who we've ministered to, refers us to somebody else. So, but we do have friends and family members who do come, and not only in Florida, but in Texas, in Colorado, in Tennessee. I'm currently ministering to inmates in those states as well through email. But we're able to email just about any inmate these days. And we send them an email, the Florida Prison Ministry does, and says, hey, you know, we're thinking about you, we're praying for you. Someone out here, or maybe multiple people out here are as well, and one of our ministers has experience in prison and would love to come in and talk with you. Would you be interested in that? And that's kind of how we open the door to do ministering one-on-ones. 99% of the time they are interested and they say, yes, I would love that. So then that's when I will go and initiate the conversation and start talking with the man. And depending on how far away he is, depends on what happens next. So if it's in an area such as Region 3 where the orange circle is, I may go down there and initiate it and get to know the man and stuff, and then I will ask one of the other volunteers to come in and lead that way. I try to go in and start it because I can relate with a lot of men in prison because I've been in prison. So I know what it's like to be told what to do, when to do it, how to do it. I know what it's like to be addicted to drugs, to lust, to money, to power. I know all those things. So that gives me a relatability with men, and it gives them a sense of comfort. This isn't someone who grew up in the church who's coming in and telling me how to live, but it's someone I can actually relate to because they know the lifestyle and they are now where I want to be. So I kind of use that as my way in to get to know men and help mentor and counsel them. But we also offer, as I mentioned earlier, the Defending the Faith Study Bible. It's very important. Correspondence courses, Sunday Bible class, worship, baptism opportunities, some self-help programs I'll talk about in just a minute. We have about 40 students who are in the bachelor's program for Nations University. They're on their path to accomplish or achieve a bachelor degree in biblical studies. And Nations University is a church-based university. And when I say church, I'm talking about the Lord's church. I'm not talking about any of the denominational congregations out there. Now, one more thing. End of sentence church home placement. Very important. So really prison ministry is kind of two parts. There's the actual while the person's in prison, and then there's when they get out. Because we don't want to just go in and minister to them and give them all these tools and things to think about while they're in, but we also have to support men when they get out. It's important, and it's another part of the work, and we'll talk about that here in just a moment. So some of these self-help or self-improvement programs, I should say, include the Principles and Application for Life program, Authentic Manhood, How to Be a Christian Man. Unfortunately, we live in a world where Satan has taken the identity of a Christian man, and we've pretty much just given him our roles as Christian men. So this class is designed to help men combat those things and see how it is to live as a faithful Christian man. Anger management. A lot of anger in prison, a lot of bitterness. Christians Against Substance Abuse. It's a 12-step program type class, except, of course, Jesus Christ is our higher power, and we have biblical scripture to back the 12 steps. So that's really good. Sexual idolatry, understanding and breaking sexual addiction. There's a lot of homosexuality in prison and masturbation issues. Different men who have struggled with different sexual things in the past. Some who've been molested, just all kinds of sexual things in nature. And of course, we live in a culture where sex sells and it's everywhere you go. So we have a class designed to help break free of that as well. Forgiving others and forgiving ourselves. This can be a challenge. So we've also have a class designed for that as well. Now, some stress relief programs that we offer. As I mentioned before, being in prison and being told what to do, when to do, how to do it, around a lot of other characters is a stressful thing. And not only that, but in prison in Florida, the majority of them do not have air conditioner. That just breeds anger. I don't understand it. It seems like cruel and inhumane treatment. I don't know how I would be able to survive, honestly. But anyway, that's the case. So we open up the chapel on Tuesday nights at RMC for either a Christian comedy and praise night or inspiration and devotional night. It's good, clean Christian comedy. Personally, I believe that if a man can come in there and relax in the air conditioner and just have some laughs, that he may be able to go the rest of the week without killing somebody. So that's what we do on those nights. So those are some of the physical programs that we offer in that blue circle that I showed you earlier. But I told you that we minister across the state, and that's true. So we do this through the network of volunteers, and we also do this through electronic means such as email and video visitation. And up here on the screen is just a few examples of that. So as you can see, these men are all across the state, and not only does it include men in prison, but it also includes people who are in county jails as well. So, for example, you have a man up there, it says Alachua County Jail. This simply came to me. The EPA was at my home looking at something to do with the water, and she asked me, "What do you do?" I said, "Well, I'm a prison minister." She goes, "Oh, well, I know someone who's in jail." And I said, "Oh, yeah? Well, who is it? I'll minister to him." So that's how that connection was made. We also had someone at the house doing some work on some painting on the wall. And this, the woman who owns that company, she said her son was in trouble, and he was in the county jail. So, well, we can minister to him too. So that's kind of how that works. You can see the man up there at Hamilton CI. He's a member of the church. He's under what's called a PRRA. It's the Prison Release Reoffender Act. It's a tragic thing that a man can get a life sentence because he holds a knife up to somebody and says, "Give me the money out of the cash register." Yes, that's a terrible thing to do, and it deserves punishment, but I don't know that life in prison is the answer for someone when they're 25 years old. But sadly, if someone goes into prison and is released and they reoffend in 3 years, then whatever the maximum punishment for that crime is, they have to receive. And that's a law that was enacted in the 90s, I believe. But anyway, so particular gentleman up there, his family contacted us. They're down in Region 3 and said, our son's in prison and can you minister to him? And we said, absolutely. And he's someone who I see on a regular basis. All right, so now let's talk about life beyond prison. So that's kind of what we're doing in prisons across the state. But what about when men get out? Well, as I mentioned before, men need a support system. They need to know that the brethren are there to help them. This is AJ. AJ's on work release. He's not yet a member of the High Springs Church, but he will be. So far it's taken, here we are about 2 months in, and we're waiting on the Florida Department of Corrections to permit us to come pick him up. Right now the only services that he's available to go to is from a Pentecostal church who were already in their system. So hopefully we'll have that worked out real soon. This is Chase. Chase is a member of the Concord Street Church of Christ down in Orlando. Chase was also one of our guest speakers at our prison ministry benefit dinner not too long ago. This is Pon. Pon, stand up. Pon is a member of the Middleburg Church of Christ, and he's also a member of the Off the Chain Transition House. So we work with a few different transition houses, but the one that we highly esteem, that we love to work with, is the one that's ran by a member of the Lord's Church. And not just a member of the Lord's Church, but an elder of the Lord's Church in Middleburg. So this transition house is not necessarily geared toward helping someone get a job and a car and a phone and all that stuff, even though that happens. but it's more about men who want to spiritually grow and mature, men who have come to realize that the way that they were living in life before, something needs to change. And a lot of times men need help with that. And it's not always rainbows and butterflies either. Learning how to live a different way. It can be painstaking. It can be growing pains is what it's called. But, it's only when we get out of our bubble and our comfort zone do we actually grow. So this transition house is kind of geared toward that. Now, this is an older picture of the transition house men who are no longer there. Some of the men in this picture are there, and some of them are not. And all of these men are currently there. And if I have many of them here with me today who I would like to introduce. So I'm going to start introducing you guys. Robert. This is Robert, everyone. Chris. Arnell. Ken. And Sean. All right, so you've heard enough from me, so I think we still have about 10 minutes or so. What I'd like to do, maybe even more than that, what I'd like to do is offer some of these men a chance to come up and speak to you. So, Ken, I saw your hand raised. So that means you want to come up and say something, so come on down.
I actually want to say you said all of those men, but Greg Whipple, the second to the right, is not in the transition home. He's actually one of the ministers that goes into the prisons. He's in that photo there.
Seems like I did that on purpose, but I didn't. Prison ministry is very dear to my heart. I personally keep in contact with about 16 men that I have done time with. I got out, it's been a year, August, so a little over a year, and I'm in the transition program. My roommates in my transition house are Arnell and Pon. We continue to grow in our faith. The church family is part of our life. Without that, we wouldn't grow spiritually. But the ministry in the prisons is so important that I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be in Christ without it. So we want to thank you for your support and your prayers and everything that you do. Thank you.
Now, thank you, brother.
All right.
Now, Ken called me out on Greg Whipple, but I said all of these men are in the transition house, and Greg Whipple goes in the transition house. So he's just not I don't know what the word is, I don't know, member, I guess. But Greg is also a prison minister as well, and we work with a network of men to accomplish the Great Commission to those in prison and helping them continue to learn what Jesus taught and put it in their lives. So, Pon, I know that you're dying to get up here and say something. Yeah, so Pon is extremely shy, and in prison, when we would be in the chapel, there'd be more people in the chapel than we have in this room today. But I would make Pon stand up and say prayer because you have to grow. You have to grow. So I'm going to cut you a break today, Pon, if there's another man sitting down who would like to say anything. Robert, you're smiling. You made eye contact. Come on down. See, making eye contact means you're volunteering too. So. Now, Go ahead and tell us, so how long have you been out?
7 weeks.
7 weeks. And have you spoken in front of a crowd at all yet?
Once.
Once? Okay, all right. So then it's not completely new.
No.
All right.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. How you doing, family? So it's been an amazing experience, but mainly it's just the love you feel from everyone. They teach you that you don't come from a heart of hate for everyone. It's love, because with face tattoos, you're kind of judged physically first. And it shouldn't be a physical, it should be internal. It's what's inside, you know? It's your heart. A humble heart is the best for growth. And these men, that's what they do. They inspire you. Every one of us, we have a close-knit brotherhood. It's a family-oriented. And it's iron sharpens iron, you know, every day. This past weekend, me and another man there, communication was key and it was abrasive. But you watch the elders and the men at the church, how they're able to communicate with each other without being harmful. They actually listen to each other, and it gives us something to look forward to strive to mature in our walk with Christ. Because that's what it's about. Knowing that we could die today, but we have our Lord Jesus Christ, our Savior. We're going to heaven, you know? And that's our foundation, and we just build from that. So whether or not our family, earthly family, I haven't had contact with since I've been released. I can't talk to my mom, my brother, my sister. I was incarcerated for 3.5 years. I haven't seen my daughter in 5 years. You know? I can't, because if I go back to that area anywhere, there's a chance that I could go back to prison. So you have to make sacrifices. But the Lord provides you a whole nother family. You know, any one of these men right here are my brother and my sister. Daryl, Chris. I was actually incarcerated with Pon. He got out, and I got out after him. So it's just, the Lord works in mysterious ways. I never thought that a year ago I'd be standing in front of you right now, you know, and now, thanks to all that, somehow I just spoke to a dermatologist, and someone's going to pay to have the face tattoos removed. I start the first session next month. 6 sessions. That's how the Lord provided. All I can do is my daily walk. Make sure I take care of what I take care of every day, staying clean, sober, and the Lord's going to take care of everything else for me. So I thank you, all of you, for letting me speak.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, none of us who have made mistakes in life wake up in the morning as a child and say, you know what, I'm going to grow up and be a criminal. I'm going to grow up and be a murderer or whatever, you know. But that's the way that sin works and the way that the world works. The world attacks us, sin creeps in, and before you know it, we've become something we're not. Now, I can totally relate to what he's saying, because never in a million years did I ever think that I would be up here talking to you and be in ministry and helping others follow Christ. But, you know, I have my story too, and I started to pursue a relationship with God for no other reason than to have that relationship. And through that, I have been rewarded with being able to work in His kingdom, to have a lovely wife and family. And it just goes to show you, Hebrews 11:6, without faith it is impossible to please God, and we must believe that He's the rewarder of those who diligently seek Him. And I see that time and time again. And I'm an example of that. And these men, if they're not already, they will be an example of that. That doesn't mean it's easy. It doesn't mean you don't go through things, as Robert is. But we have to keep going forward, okay? It's like driving a car. The rear view mirror is there for a glimpse. You can't stay focused in it because you're going to hit a tree. And that's the way it is with all of these things. My son is actually, he turns 25 on the 25th of October, and he hates me. I mean, he hates me. And I've tried to amend that situation, but it's, you know, it's out of my hands. And I do the best I can do with it, and then I have to keep going forward. I can't let that drive me. I can't let that be a reason for me to stop going forward. And that's the same thing with any of us. Okay, we have to continue to go forward. Now, I'm going to give the other man an opportunity to speak as well, but I'm not going to give Arnell an option. So, Arnell, I'm going to give the other guys an option after you, Arnell. But Arnell, I'm not going to give you an option. Arnell was one of our another one of our speakers at the prison ministry benefit dinner, and I'd like to welcome him up here so he can give us a few words too. Yes, sir. Is there any other Arnell in here? Any other Arnell? All right, so you're the only Arnell.
Good morning. I'm also shy too.
Except he's easier to get up here than Paul, so that's why I got him up here.
So
Paul, I'm going to have to go down there and just pull out to the front.
I've been out about almost 2 years. Got out 2022? 22? Yeah, time kind of flies by. So I got introduced to the gospel through a friend that befriended me that knows Daryl Townsend while I was in prison. Ended up reading Muscle and Shovel. That's pretty much how I kind of got back into Christ and really started reading the gospel. Since I've been out, been a great blessing to be around Chris. The program that he mentioned about forgiving, we actually did that with Gary Wilder. I think most time Christians that come to the faith, they still don't forgive themselves for whatever sins that they did to go to prison. I struggled with that too initially. Since then, I've forgiven myself. And that's all I can do, because I know God has forgiven me too of my sin. I'm lost.
You got to breathe a little bit.
Okay.
And it helps if you look at the top of the head and not at the face. That always helps.
Now, I appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak here today. For you guys supporting the ministry. I don't know where I would be if, for the work that you do, Daryl Townsend, Off the Chain Ministry. So I'm very thankful for the brothers that hold me accountable. I want to continue living righteously and walking according to Christ. So that's that.
Thank you, brother. All right. So now I'm going to give the other guys an opportunity. Sean, would you like to say something? All right, because if you were not going to say something, I've got a video of you saying something next. But since you're going to come up, we'll save the video.
Good morning. This is kind of what they say full circle, because my road to Christ actually started in St. Augustine. I was living on Anastasia Island and got in a bad situation, but then wound up in prison. And men like Chris would come in, they would minister and teach the gospel, and it's a great thing. I was baptized January 17th, and then when I got out, it's not been easy, but we're just staying focused on Christ, living that life, and now I'm in a good job. Actually, second year with apprenticeship, electrician apprenticeship, surrounded by great men. Still, Chris comes to Bible studies. And, it's just staying focused, doing the right thing. Everything else will fall in line, like Robert said. But thank y'all for all y'all support and what y'all do. Thank you.
Brother. Now, Chris, you don't have to come up and say something. It'll be all right if you don't, but I'm going to give you the option. I've got 5 minutes left, so you can come up and say something, or I can talk and answer questions. Your choice. What? Okay, all right. So at the Transition House on Monday nights, there is and this is what Sean was talking about that I come to. There's a Bible study on Monday nights, a Bible study on Tuesday nights. Wednesday night, of course, is Bible study at the church congregation. I think Thursday and Friday and Saturday night they have freedom to do whatever it is they want to. No? Okay. So Saturday is also a Bible study, and then of course Sunday is the Lord's Day, and there's always a Bible study on that day. I am spread extremely thin, believe it or not. So I only make it to the transition house. My plan, my objective is every other Monday. The Monday nights that I am not at the transition house, I'm at a B12 meeting in Gainesville, which B12 is the biblical 12-step program for those in recovery. So that's what I try to do every other Monday night. It doesn't always work out that way, but that's kind of what Sean was talking about. So we have maybe 2 or 3 minutes left, so I just wanted to ask you if anyone has any questions that they would like to ask. Yes, sir.
Just curious, I would think one of the biggest challenges is after release.
Absolutely.
So what are some of the techniques, things you guys, and I'm sure each case is different, so what's some of the things you guys do to help these, and it's interesting that the one gentleman did the electrician's program, and I think that would be very important to get that kind of jobs or whatever.
Well, one thing we have to do is always make ourselves available. So I'm like a doctor. I'm always on call. I'm always there if someone needs to talk or whatever. Whether they're in the church, and I do this for any inmate who leaves. I'm available to them whether they're in the church or not in the church, because I'm always going to show that love to them. But making yourself available is a big thing. And then each individual is different. Each individual has their own set of circumstances and things that they're going through. So it's really an individual by individual basis. But yeah, we help men with a job, or Chase, for example, who I mentioned earlier. Chase, I had targeted to go to the transition house, but he didn't want to necessarily do that. So he was homeless for a couple of weeks in Orlando, and I went down there and bought him lunch one day just to see him and talk with him and ask him how he's doing. And he was telling me everything. I said, "Listen, are you going to church?" "No." I said, "You need to go to church." I got on my phone right there and looked, and I said, "Look, Concord Street Church of Christ, it's 7 minutes away. Be there." So he went up and slept on their front steps one night. But now he's a member of that congregation. They love him, and he has a full scholarship to Full Sail University, which is a recording artist school that he's really interested in. Chase is very evangelistic too. So short answer is each individual has their own needs, and it depends on them as much as it depends on whatever it is we can help them with. But making ourselves available is a real important thing. Mr. LeMay, I believe I saw your hand.
Yeah, I was just curious. You mentioned Calvinism a couple of times as one particular hurdle to overcome your studies. I was just wondering if maybe new members that are in your, not those who've been baptized, but just new folks you're studying with, is there maybe any common questions that they might have? Just general type questions that...
You know, when I went to preacher school at Bear Valley, I didn't go to be involved with ministry. And when Calvinism came up, I simply said, "Oh, yeah, I don't even buy into that." So I didn't pay as much attention to it as I wish I would have. But it seems to be a real prideful thing, right? There's a lot of pride going on there. I've never met any Calvinist who said he wasn't one of the chosen. So it's really, I think, breaking down that pride. There's a lot of pride with those. And it's also this intellectual, studious type demeanor. Okay, we have 0 minutes left. But I would say that there's a Reformation Bible going around in prison, and it really attracts those who think that they're so smart. And they get drawn into that. That's why I kind of counter it with this Defending the Faith study Bible, because it's something for those who want to dig deeper when we're not around. So, anyway, we're out of time. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your love and support of this ministry. Please keep us in your prayer, not only us, those who minister, but also those incarcerated and their families as well. Thank you.